What the hell happened to Topshop? How did we get from it girls, Tumblr and fashion stardom to jeans on ASOS? Welcome to my channel, it's Hallie again, and today I'm going to take you on another deep dive nostalgic trip through the 2010s. Today I want to talk to you about the crazy rise and fall of a fashion empire, Topshop. I'm going to touch on quite a lot here, so if you're a millennial you can sit back and enjoy the nostalgia roller coaster, and if you're a Gen Z, strap in because Topshop was wild. Let's delve into the history. So the Arcadia group, which owns Topshop, came to fruition in the 1900s with this Lithuanian businessman called Montague Burton, who came over to the UK and started a menswear brand. In 1946, Burton acquired Peter Robinson, which at the time was a department store in Sheffield, which is where our story begins. I think most people our age think that Topshop was like a 21st century brand, but Topshop actually started as Topshop in the 1960s. It was a small women's wear section of the Peter Robinson department store. Topshop was often described as a young department due to a gap in the market at the time. Topshop at the time seemed to be the only place that was marketing clothes towards teenagers. You might find yourself asking, well, surely there's always been teenagers, so how come teenage clothing didn't seem to be a thing before then? Well, my historical knowledge is about to jump out. The idea of being a teenager is actually a really new concept. Prior to this, you were a child and then an adult. Women were expected to settle down into domestic life earlier, and young men were ushered into work at an earlier age too. The idea of a teenager came by via lots of factors, notably the burgeoning independence of younger people due to the post-war economic boom, which gave them more financial freedom to do what they want, spend money on what they want, and most importantly, dress how they want. Let's get back to the main plot of this video. Because teenage life was fairly new, identities through clothing was still kind of being developed. Topshop was one of the first places to actually cater to this need of wanting to develop your own personal style that was different to your parents. Topshop was a massive success. So where did they end up putting the next department? Obviously in Peter Robinson on Oxford Street. This ushered the beginning of Topshop's crazy journey in London. I'll get back to that later on in this video. Soon enough, by the 1970s, Topshop had 50 of its own stores, and they were doing incredibly well for themselves. If you're a British person in your teens to maybe 30s right now, I reckon you've heard your parents say oh, what's the point of Topshop? Topshop was so tacky back in my day. It was kind of like Primark, nobody ever went there. Well, they're probably talking about the pre-90s era, where a lot of people, especially older people, looked down on Topshop. Most importantly, it was probably a time before Topshop's revamp. Topshop had a major revamp in the 90s, which I'll refer to going forward as the first peak. Let's get into it. How did Topshop gain an edge from its competitors in the 1990s to 2000s? Topshop was actually one of the first mainstream brands to do collabs with fashion houses and big designers. These collabs made creative but affordable clothing. In 1994, they did a really cool collection with Red or Dead, and then they went on to design clothes with the likes of Marcus Lutfer, Tristan Weber, Hussein Chalian, and Tracy Boyd. In 1999, Jane Shepherdson joined Topshop as brand manager. In her era, Topshop went from just a teen store to a huge brand with massive clout in the industry. Her main goal with Topshop was to reposition it. She really wanted people to respect the design and creativity that went into their clothing and show them that they couldn't get that elsewhere on the high street. In an interview with Business of Fashion, she said that she was super concerned with making sure Topshop was seen as a valuable and innovative centre of design, not just a high street shop ripping off expensive brands. The Topshop team did this by taking on designers from famous London fashion schools like the Royal College of Art and Central St Martin's. In 2007, notorious it girl and supermodel Kate Moss made her first of many collections with Topshop. This signalled Topshop skyrocketing to stardom. Shall we discuss the second wave? Stay with me on this one. The peak of Topshop, in my opinion, is a story in 3 parts, so let's get into it. Part 1, the Oxford Street store. Topshop opened its Oxford Street store in 1994, but I'd say it peaked in the 2010s. In case some of you don't know, Oxford Street is a massive shopping district in London, and it's one of the retail capitals of the world. In the 90s, Jane Shepperton laid out her vision for the in-store Topshop experience. She really wanted customers to get the great design and service that they could find if they were wealthy by going to places like Selfridges or Harrods. She really wanted the Topshop store to be immersive and creative. This description doesn't even begin to talk about Topshop Oxford Street in the 2010s. In the late 2000s to the early 2010s, Topshop morphed from just the usual high street experience to this crazy immersive store that you could spend the day in. Instead of just clothing, there were cafes, restaurants, nail bars, makeup bars with bespoke makeup in, hairdressers. There were DJ sets, and at one point I even remember there being like a slide that would slide you down from like the top floor to the bottom floor. It was absolutely wild. Also, unlike other high street shops at the time, Topshop offered this like personal styling experience. At the time, if you were one of those Topshop personal styling assistants who worked in Oxford Street,
you had officially made it.
The Topshop store had a lasting cultural impact on teens and 20-somethings in the early 2010s. If you were doing a trip to London, you could spend hours in Topshop's labyrinth. So when Topshop Oxford Street closed its doors in early 2021, people actually mourned as if someone was dead. It felt like the end of something, and all that was left were the memories. I'll get into why that closure happened later on in this video, but for now, let's move on to the second part of Topshop's peak. High fashion, it girls, and Topshop unique. Did you need another reason why Topshop was staying on other brands' necks? Topshop was actually the only high street shop at the time that was a player in the big high fashion design game. Topshop was actually the first high street brand to show at London Fashion Week in 2006. Their high fashion portion of Topshop was called Topshop Unique. Although they'd been showing since 2006, I feel Topshop Unique really gained recognition from around 2011 to 2015, with the next generation of it girl models like Joan Small, Cara Delevingne, Kendall Jenner and Jordan Dunn walking their runways. And you'd see big names like Miss Anna Wintour, Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell and Alexa Chung sitting front row. If you have that many it girls around you, it means you've hit your peak. But what was the charm of Topshop Unique for regular people like us? Well, the charm of Topshop Unique was that for the first time in London Fashion Week history, you could be an it girl too. Not long after the show, you could walk into any Topshop and buy stuff from the collection. Even though Topshop Unique collections were pricier than the average high street items, they felt really special and they were still kind of affordable for what they were. The fact that you could see Cara Delevingne in an outfit and then you could go and try it on the next day made teenagers feel super special at the time. Because the thing is, you simply can't do that with brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Dior, or any other sort of brands that were showing at London Fashion Week. Topshop held its credibility as high fashion and big in the design game, but without the price tag of luxury brands. Topshop Unique was inspired by young people and youth culture. It kind of embodied what it felt like to be the main character, or the British it girl. Aside from Topshop Unique, it girls were seen all across Topshop's peak. Cara Delevingne and Alexa Chung were deemed Topshop girls. Kate Moss made 14 collections for the brand. Kendall and Kylie also released Topshop collections, and Beyoncé launched Ivy Park under Topshop's wing. They were icons, legends, and they were the moment.
Now come on now.
By buying Topshop, you could work out in clothes made by Beyoncé. You could replicate Kendall and Kylie's LA look. You could wear the same outfits as Cara Delevingne and Alexa Chung wore to Glastonbury. Now that's kind of insane. Wearing Topshop made you an it girl too, which leads me to the next part of the peak. Tumblr, teens, and trendsetting. One thing to remember about fashion is it's actually super influenced by teens. That's why you're seeing TikTok stars like Emma Chamberlain and Charli D'Amelio infiltrating some of the world's biggest luxury brands. All brands want to feel young and hip and stylish, and I feel like Topshop achieved that a million times over in their peak. The 2010s was a really interesting time for fashion. We saw the growth of fashion bloggers through platforms like Tumblr, We Heart It, Pinterest, and WordPress. And we also saw the development of some really distinct aesthetics. Whether you were a hipster, into soft grunge, really liked the Americana aesthetic, or dressed like a blogger, all of the major items that you would find still came from Topshop. Topshop was simultaneously a hub for cool design, but also provided good basics like their famous Joni and Jamie jeans. I feel like of all the high street brands of the time, Topshop really had an edge in that they developed distinct styles and had loads of items for loads of different aesthetics. Tumblr made sure that all of those items were seen and were in constant circulation at the time. It actually got to the point in the 2010s where I feel like high street brands stopped copying high fashion brands and just started copying whatever Topshop did. And when you think about that, isn't that kind of wild? The fall. How does a brand with so much power have such an insane fall? There are quite a few reasons. A lack of creativity. In a recent interview with Business of Fashion, Jane Shepherdson talks about Philip Green's lack of creativity. She says that he was more interested in the pursuit of profit than creating top quality, well-designed clothes. Capitalism strikes again. The logistics. Topshop actually had loads of physical shops, like over 500 in their peak. They actually focused a lot of time, energy and money into their shops and focused less energy into their e-commerce platforms, which was a big mistake. Online shops have taken over. Whilst Topshop were hoping that people came through their doors, brands like ASOS, PrettyLittleThing, Shein and Boohoo are on the rise, and they didn't need shops to achieve this. Simply put, Topshop was being outcompeted. These websites were seeing things on the runway and being able to get them on their store within 48 hours. These shops are also selling items for really, really cheap. Do you remember when PrettyLittleThing did a sale and some items were up for as little as 7p, as if they don't need to pay their garment workers who are literally working under slave labour? Anyway, by the late 2010s, Topshop was looking kind of expensive in comparison to other brands, and their quality had decreased, so it kind of felt like, what was the point? We're in the middle of a huge wave of ultra-fast fashion, where shops like this are overproducing masses of clothing off the backs of severely underpaid garment workers for consumers that are craving the latest trends. Ultra-fast fashion also speeds up trend cycles, which is why items that were popular last summer are already being described as joogy now. Topshop's business model simply couldn't keep up. In that Business of Fashion interview, Jane Shepherdson says a lot of interesting stuff about Topshop, which I think is worth listening to. She actually says a lot about why she thinks Topshop declined and fell. In the interview, Jane Shepherdson says she sees it that 50% of people at the moment are retaliating to ultra-fast fashion by adopting more ethical and sustainable fashion habits. I think that makes people not want to shop at Topshop or any other fast fashion retailer. I think that 50% is great. There is a need for people to slow down with their fashion consumption. Thrifting is super fun. I think it gives you an edge stylistically when you're wearing stuff that other people aren't.
That's my opinion!
But let's talk about the other 50%. The other 50% of people are obsessed with fast fashion, probably even a little bit addicted to it. Why would that 50% of people do the journey to Topshop when they can just buy off Shein and PLT and get whatever an influencer or celebrity is wearing delivered to them within a couple days? Although there's two halves, it's like neither half is interested in Topshop anymore. The big boss. A couple of years ago, after the rise of the Me Too movement, things went down in Topshop HQ. Billionaire Philip Green, who owns the Arcadia Group, had allegations against him. This just didn't look good for people who had been associated with Topshop. In 2018, Beyoncé's Ivy Park splits from Topshop, signalling the fall of the brand. Topshop was already down bad when the pandemic happened in 2020. As you know, we basically shut down, which meant that hundreds of Topshop stores had to close their doors. This really is a classic story. The big boss stayed rich by throwing the company and thousands of its retail workers under the bus, because that's what billionaires do. And with that, Topshop goes bust. Topshop now sits on the ASOS website, and to be honest, I don't see their designs as being very different from the general stuff that's sold on there. What do you think? Thank you so much if you stayed and watched it. I'm really, really interested to hear your memories about Topshop, or what you think about the brand now, where you think it might be headed. Do you think it'll sit on ASOS forever? I'm really interested in fashion commentary videos, the business of fashion, aesthetics, styling, pop culture. So I'm really, really looking forward to making more content. Thank you so much. This has been Hallie, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.